everybody. I can see people joining on our Facebook Live and also participants and attendees. We are so excited to be able to cover this amazing topic of the legal side of independent and agency, as we see an uptick in the amount of intended parents going independent. We want to make sure that you are educated as an intended parent and a surrogate and understand the pros and the cons of everything. So if you'll give me a minute, I'm going to start the presentation itself, and I'll be able to introduce one of our amazing speakers, and we'll get started. Thank you guys for your patience. Okay, let me know, Ralph, when you are able to see our presentation. Should be popping up soon. Okay, perfect. Can you see that?
Yes, I see it.
Awesome. Okay, everybody, this is Ashley, and I am with Ralph Tsong, who actually was my attorney for my first surrogacy. He represented, well, not my attorney, but he represented my intended parents through the process. Also is one of our top attorneys that we work with at SurrogateFirst. And so I'd love to kind of just introduce him. I'll share a little bit about our agency, our overview. There will be a survey at the end, so anyone who's registered and is here on the webinar will be able to go over that survey. Please fill that out. It's going to allow us to email you a copy of the webinar. We also will be having this stream live on Facebook right now. And then we also are going to be having this uploaded onto our YouTube channel. I'm going to make sure that we are recording at this point. So just one moment. Perfect. So we're going to be doing our webinar today on the legal insider perspective on independent and agency journeys. Tsong Law Group is a law group with Ralph Tsong, who has helped us with, I would say, probably over the hundreds of cases we've done. You guys have helped us with the majority, if not most of them, in California. You guys are also licensed in a few other states, so I'd love for you to be able to share that when you introduce yourself, as well as being an attorney who helped with my personal journey. So I can attest that Ralph is highly educated and experienced, warm-hearted, probably one of the quickest turnarounds I've ever seen in the history of our agency. You were able to draft a contract for parents who are on a very tight timeline and get the approvals, and the attorney that was helping the surrogate. And I think from the start to finish was like 7 days or something, 7 business days. So that was the fastest I'd ever seen in the history. We usually tell parents 4 to 6 weeks to experience the legal clearance. So Ralph also is been in practice for 24 years, 6 years in the field of assisted reproductive technologies, graduate of University of Chicago Law School, licensed in California, Arizona, Illinois, and Washington. You are also a fellow at Quad A and the Academy of California Adoption and Art Lawyers, and a member of the Associated Bar of American Bar of Associates, art committees, SEEDS, ASRM. I mean, I don't know how you have enough hours in the day to be able to accomplish all of this, but I know that you're around here. I also saw that, like, was it this year, last year, you were also featured with like an award and recognized for all your hard work. So we definitely appreciate you being here. Maybe you could share a little bit about yourself and your heart of your firm.
Yeah, so I practiced 24 years. I guess I did a lot of years in government, so I don't look so old as other attorneys. But I got into this field because I started my own law firm because I had adopted my son and we were IVF survivors. And I wanted to help people with family formation. And we have, I have that personal experience with the IVF cycle. And it just turned out that surrogacy was such a great fit for me. So I've been helping families out. I've been helping both surrogates and intended parents, about equal numbers. And we do more than 100 cases a year for surrogacy and about 100 cases a year for egg donation as well. And we work on California time, which I think means we have to do things faster than the other states. I think California probably is the fastest, at least the attorneys are, there's so many attorneys, so we tend to be pretty competitive amongst ourselves. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to work with SurrogateFirst. It's a great agency that, we've seen a lot of good matches from, a lot of success. And I want to talk about this subject because more and more people are looking at surrogacy. And at the same time, it's becoming more and more out of reach for people because as there are more people interested in surrogacy, there are fewer surrogates available for everybody. And people are looking abroad, but people are also looking at independent matches. And some of the, I'm on the Facebook groups, and some of the things, they concern me because there are some people who are like preying on intended parents, and I don't think they're actual surrogates, or they might be from another country and they have their best, they might be honest and want to become surrogates, but that might just not be a possible match. But I do want to talk about my experiences with independent surrogacy, as we do see a lot of independent cases. And I'm not going to say that independent surrogacy is not right for people, or that one is better than the other. They both have pros and cons, and we'll talk about those. But I just want to talk honestly about some of the things we've seen in independent surrogacy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I appreciate, you sharing your heart on this. As a 4-time surrogate and the intake director at SurrogateFirst, I know that I've met many parents who, meet with our agency and they don't know where to begin with the surrogacy process. And maybe they find that the cost and what they believe might be the full cost of a surrogacy journey might not be in their budget. And so they're looking at the option of independent, whether that's with someone known to them or someone that is, is a stranger at first. This is definitely like a married at first sight, if that makes any sense, because we get to know each other fairly quickly. And so I definitely appreciate that. I'm going to cover, we'll start off with covering what we're going to be discussing for the journey. Once we go over that, a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is recorded. It will be available, like I said earlier, on Facebook, YouTube, and also to any of our intended parents that registered with the webinar, or our surrogates that registered. If you have any questions and you need a copy and you can't find out where it's at, you can always email me at Ashley, ASHLEY, at SurrogateFirst, SurrogateFirst.com. And I'm more than happy to point you in the right directions. During this webinar, if you have any questions for Ralph, I will be able to share with you too his contact information. And if there's any other providers or services that you may need, whether you're an intended parent or surrogate with our agency, feel free to reach out to my Ashley at surrogatefirst.com website, or info at surrogatefirst.com. We are definitely not gatekeepers in the surrogate community, and we believe that by educating, we will continue to keep surrogacy safe in the US. We want to make sure that everyone is educated, that whether you're going with an agency or not, you have some information and support so that it doesn't turn into a negative experience for everyone. So we will get started. A little bit about SurrogateFirst, and I'll make this quick. We are founded in Los Angeles, California. We were established in 2018, and we have a team of about 15 staff members over 8 states. It's always growing. And our case management was under 100 cases last year, just shy of 100. There's several things that I feel stand out about SurrogateFirst, and that's going to be our core values. We want to wow. We want to delight our intended parents. We want to over communicate. We want you to be, we want you to trust the process, trust us and our experiences. But we also want to be transparent with you and be able to answer those questions. Same thing for our surrogates. We want to make sure that you are educated and supported. And we're very open and humble, I think, my own perception of our agency, to learn and to better our services. We do want to be the best, not necessarily the largest, but we want to give that core experience to everyone. We also are available 24/7. We do have a 24/7 line with customer service. And so that's a little bit about us. The other thing that stands out is we are a no match, no fee agency. So there's no match, no fees due until 4 things occur. You accept a surrogate's profile, she accepts your profile, the clinic accepts the medical records, and you do a match meeting. Our match meetings are what help us to be successful with Ralph. When we get to that point, we want to make sure that everyone is evenly yoked and agrees upon all those important topics. And I'm sure that Ralph's going to explain more about that, so I don't even need to hang out here. We also have a pretty quick matching process. At this time, we are currently 0 to 3 months. I know that sounds crazy, and that does sound crazy to me too, but we currently have an amazing influx of wonderful surrogates that are qualified. Currently, we have about a 90 to 94% disqualification rate, or a 6 to 10 acceptance rate. So we will go through medical screenings, background checks, psychological evaluations, full drug panels, to make sure that as a surrogate, that it's safe for you to carry a baby, and it's safe for the baby, and it's a safe environment. Also helps with the nerves, because Ralph, as you're an intended parent, or you adopted your child and you went through IVF, I can imagine the thought process of maybe using a surrogate to carry your child and trusting the process and it being safe. Like, I know for me, I'd probably be the worst intended parent there is. So I'd be like out of bush. No. So maybe you can share a little bit about why, why is being legally represented in surrogacy so important?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't really know why the lawyers are involved in this process. But this is going to be a year or longer commitment if you have a successful journey. And I say longer than a year because even if your surrogate gets pregnant right away, there's still going to be bills to pay afterwards. There's still going to be things that come in, and they could come in 6 months later or something like that. So we're going to have a contract. There's going to be a contract that's going to be close to 50 pages or more. And it's going to explain what everybody's responsibilities are, what everybody's duties are, what people are giving up, what people are waiving, those sorts of things, as well as what the compensation is. And I don't know about you, but like if you get a really long contract on Netflix or Apple, whenever you update your app, you're probably not going to read it, and you're probably not going to understand it even if you did. But since we're the lawyers and one of us has drafted the contract, we're going to be able to explain the contracts to you. So that's a very important thing, that you be able to understand the contract, that you feel comfortable with it, that you can make changes and you're not going to be surprised later on in the journey. The contract review for the surrogate is also important because that she's going to have to make some commitments, and she's going to have to know what she's getting into. Her spouse is going to need to know as well. The parentage part is when we confirm that the intended parents are parents. The surrogate's attorney will also participate in that usually. And we have to make sure that the contract is legally sufficient, that we can get a parentage judgment.
Yeah.
And it is actually the law in California, as well as many other states, that both surrogate and intended parents have separate representation. So that's an important legal protection. And one of the things we also do is we assist intended parents or the surrogates, our clients, when there are conflicts down the road. We won't actually become involved in litigation, but we will try to resolve disputes. We'll try to answer questions that come up along the way during the contract. We'll try to make simple amendments to the contract as well, if that's necessary.
I definitely agree with you too, on the fact that most people don't read their contracts when they're signing these long contracts for their cable or their cell phones. I know for me personally, I was that person who actually read every page of the paperwork when we bought our home and all of my surrogacies. And I remember meeting my attorney for the first time as a first-time surrogate. And he said, okay, is there anything you have questions on? And I was like, yeah, where do I start? And I literally was like, I need, 1.2, let's go. And he's like, you read this whole thing? I was like, we're growing a human. We got to understand these contracts. And that, attorneys are there to support us, because we don't understand legalese, and so we want to make sure both parties are, are supported. And I think that's what makes, surrogacy and attorneys in surrogacy just so valuable, is that we're not here to one up each other. It's all about making sure the contract is fair for everyone. Everyone agrees to the terms. So we definitely appreciate you. During this webinar, we're going to be discussing several topics. So you've got your work for you, because I've got a lot of knowledge I need to pull from you. First one is going to be when attorneys are involved in agency or independent surrogacy journeys. Why do intended parents go independent? Why do surrogates go independent? Which cases end up having issues? Reasons why some journeys never make it through legal clearance, and so much more. I'm going to be talking about a survey. We've done 2 surveys in the history of SurrogateFirst, where we've been able to survey hundreds of surrogates. We actually, too, little secret, have just completed, or we're going through our process right now to do our first intended parent survey. We want to make sure to gather data and inform the community and really understand what's going on. I'm sure you've seen an uptick in compensations and different, benefits and requirements. We really want to understand where that's coming from. So we'll share a little bit at the end, depending on how much time we have available. Would you mind sharing a little bit about when attorneys are involved with, independent journeys?
Yeah, I can tell you, in the agency case, usually we get our cases after the medical clearance. That we're told, or in SurrogateFirst cases, I guess it's the medical screening is scheduled because you've pre-approved. I guess you have medically pre-qualified surrogates, and the reason is because the contract is not going to be drafted until the match is confirmed to be medically cleared. Medical clearance is not 100% given. It might be, pretty likely, but at the same time, there could be further tests and that sort of thing, and then the surrogate might withdraw from the process. So we don't want to get involved too soon. In independent cases, we recommend that you talk to the attorney right away when you're thinking about any kind of independent journey, and even before you have the match, because we can provide you with a template for coming up with the compensation. The compensation is very important, and that I'm foreshadowing. It's going to be a stumbling block to a lot of independent journey cases. So you do want to have that compensation package that you would present to a potential surrogate, and we can also tell you whether some surrogate that you might have in mind is even a possible legal possibility. So sometimes we will be asked to draft the contract before medical clearance, because the agreement is maybe in independent cases we're less likely to reach the agreement, so we may want to do that before medical clearance, but generally it is done after medical clearance.
Yeah, I've seen many times on the surrogate groups, or even I provide knowledge to a medical provider, for support of employee learning more about surrogacy. And so many times are the independent cases that I either, meet with or online will get to legal, and they never discuss termination. They never discuss the full compensation package. And so they could be on completely different fields when it comes to that, because no one wants to talk about money when you're meeting someone. That's not a way to build a relationship. Hi, I'd love to carry your baby. Let's talk money and, and termination status, standards. So I love that you guys, are available for intended parents early on in the process, so that you can help set up that foundation so they even know if it's a viable match with them.
And Ashley, you can talk about some of the things that the agency does that will not happen in an independent surrogacy journey.
Yeah, definitely. So for us, what we do to make it a little different and have a very high success rate in legal is we actually have everyone sign the compensation agreement at the time of the match meeting to make sure that everyone agrees upon all the different aspects of compensation, and if there are complications or milestones. We also make sure our profiles have about 14 pages of them for surrogates and intended parents, where it talks about everything, types of families they want to match with, termination stances, communication, COVID vaccination status, vaccinations during pregnancy, delivery, even the relationship is so important. So we try to do as much as we can with that communication. And we actually write a report at that match meeting to make sure that it's a good match and everyone verbally agrees upon it. Unfortunately, my first attempt at surrogacy, my intended parents and I were on separate spectrums of the termination stance. And I trusted the agency to talk about that. I didn't know it was supposed to be in the match meeting. And we ended up having to dissolve our match at legal because we found out that it had not been honest with us. Obviously, that wasn't Surrogate First or even the first agency I completed a journey with. I left that agency after that. But the parents had already spent like $20,000 when you think about agency fees and travel and medical clearance and all different kinds of things. And my attorney, thank God, my attorney was supportive because she let me know like, hey, I don't think you guys are going to line up on this. And I don't think you want to. I think it's time to break the match. And because I had a professional who was honest with me, it saved me from potentially heartache. So a couple things with the independent journey and surrogacy. IPs are responsible to find their own surrogate. They will oversee their entire surrogacy process, find their professional partners, clinics, attorneys, insurance options, escrows, and more. You're also responsible for facilitating the medical and the psychological screenings, booking the travels, everything that comes with that, and coming to an agreement with the compensation package. Basically, you're responsible for all the aspects of the surrogacy process. So,
and don't forget the background check.
Yes.
That's something that attorneys can do.
Yes. Yeah. And it can be, it can be difficult, especially if you don't know what you're doing, in the surrogacy journey. I always tell people agencies are kind of like air traffic control, or even like a contractor if you're remodeling your house. We're here to help support all the providers and the service providers and kind of make sure everything's running when it needs to so that it doesn't crash.
So,
no, sorry about that.
Yeah. So
here
I'm going to talk about some of the observations I've had about why intended parents are going independent. And the number one reason is because of money. Although we have actually had some interesting people who have gone independent and they didn't care at all about money. Saving the agency fee is really important for a lot of people. And they think, well, we're not really sure what the agency is providing, for one thing, because when you look at the agency agreements, it says a lot of it, what they don't provide, like what they don't guarantee. So, and there's so many agencies as well. So that could be a little bit overwhelming to know which agency should I go with, because they all seem to be pretty similar. So maybe I can just find someone myself and do it. Another thing could be the agency requirements. And that has to do, the next one would be like multiple embryo transfers. They might be discouraged. It could be like the history of pregnancy. Some of they might feel that the agencies might turn down someone that has approached me, and they could be a viable candidate for surrogacy. As far as the gestational carriers, some of them have had bad experiences with an agency, and they might be turned off. Some of them may not, they might not have very much knowledge about the process, so they don't think that they need an agency. Some people think that they can get a higher price if they don't work with an agency, because if the IPs are saving their agency fee, then maybe the IP can pay them more. And then altruistic is a large reason. Sometimes people have friends or family that they know about their story, and they want to help them have a family. And sometimes it's not, it's not purely altruistic that they might get compensated something, but like a low comp case where they're helping out someone they know.
I found it interesting. In the next slide, you had spoke about the statistics on legal clearance with, agencies versus independent. Would you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, before you click them. So in 5 years, we've done over 500 cases in surrogacy. I tried counting them, and it's sometimes hard because we have like people that have done multiple journeys within us, and it's a little hard to count. But whenever the case doesn't clear legal, I remember it, because it happens very infrequently, surprisingly infrequently. For the agency cases, it's less than 2%. I think the arrow is backwards here.
Oh.
So 7 out of 485 agency journeys did not make legal clearance. And then as far as the independent cases, it's about 22% didn't get through legal. And that was 8 out of 35. So there's a lot fewer independent cases. A lot of independent cases do get through legal. A lot of independent cases are successful, but there is a significant larger number. And actually, when you look at the numbers, there's more independent cases did not make it through legal clearance than agency cases, even though there are less than 1/10 the number of independent journeys.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I can talk about some of the reasons. And for independent, I'd say the biggest reason is like personality differences. Some people are micromanagers, unfortunately. And if they're with an agency, maybe the surrogate can be shielded from that. But we can tell from the contract stage, that someone is very particular about terms. But if they are changing terms after the first draft that have been already approved by the other party, then we've got an issue. That means that they're looking for something perfect, and then they decide, she accepts this. Well, actually, I think I need to make this more stringent or something like that. The other thing is, like, sometimes the comp package is not agreed to ahead of time, and that's very common in independent cases. Even if we provide a comp worksheet, you don't seem to get the surrogate to sign off on the comp package, right? Even if you present it to them, there'll still be like room for negotiation later on in an independent case. And if both parties are motivated primarily by money, then we've got an issue, because everything is going to be up for changing. So that's like unreasonable contract demands. Another issue would be, we just can't reach an agreement on the terms. And then sometimes the surrogate just backs out. And if I'm not representing the surrogate, I don't know what the reasons are. The surrogate's attorney doesn't tell me. It could be personal reasons, it could be, I don't know. But we normally expect when we get to the contract phase that we should be able to go through smooth sailing. But in independent cases, they tend to be a lot more work. Cases where it doesn't seem to be a problem so much is when it's like a altruistic case where the parties are family members or they're very, very close friends. Sometimes we get these cases where they say it's altruistic and it's not, that the surrogate is going to get compensated either with a promise of a gift afterwards, or there's going to be compensation on the side that we don't know about. And I'm not very comfortable with representing a surrogate when that's happening. So as far as agency cases go, there are fewer reasons. Recently, this happens a little bit more frequently, that the benefit package, they're not happy with the benefit package that they signed. So that can happen, and now there's a lot of information on the internet, so people can feel like their package isn't as good as what they deserve to get or something like that. So this has been an issue. We've also seen a couple cases where the surrogate spouse didn't cooperate, and when we're reviewing with the spouse, they make that clear that they don't want to move forward. We haven't really seen cases where there's differences on termination, fetal termination. So we've been fortunate in that respect.
What would you say are your personal observations when it comes to the legal side of surrogacy and just surrogacy in general?
Well, I think one thing I've noticed is that the agency, even though, just the fact that the agency is there seems to facilitate the case getting through legal. And that's because even if they are agents for the intended parents, sometimes they say they are agents for the intended parents, sometimes they say they're a neutral party, but they do act as like a go-between. So if you have a good case manager, then they're going to help the parties smooth over differences. And if there's like different expectations, like in terms of the, that they will also remind the surrogate that they need to stick with the benefit package if they are starting to make changes to it. Okay, as I previously said, some people are micromanagers, and you might know who you are, maybe you don't, but if you are, and I can understand it too, because people who do surrogacy, who are intended parents, a lot of times they've had failed experiences with IVF. They might have had difficult, personal history, and so they do want to control what they can. And that is not going to, but that doesn't work for independent cases, because if a surrogate feels that she's going to really be like totally under scrutiny, that she cannot really do anything independent, and she's always got to check in with intended parents, and the intended parents intend to go to every single, make all the medical decisions and attend all the doctor's visits and all that sort of thing, then that does break up matches. Okay, and one of the things to be concerned about, or at least aware of, is that sometimes gestational carriers who go independent are ones that are not accepted by agencies, or they're turned down by agencies after they've had cases where they couldn't get through legal, right? Or they caused problems at the clinic or something like that. So they might know, you won't know if you're an intended parent in an independent journey that this is an experienced surrogate. She looks great, but maybe the agency won't work with her because of something that she did during her last journey. And sometimes they know that, or sometimes the surrogate may have some issue with her prior pregnancy, and they might not disclose that. But when it's an independent case, the intended parents will put pressure on their physician to accept that, to medically clear that surrogate. So they might not be medically cleared if they've gone with an agency.
And that's why we follow at SurrogateFirst the SEEDS guidelines, where parents don't actually meet the surrogate until the clinic has approved the records, because we don't want people falling in love and like picturing this journey, and then the clinic coming back and saying, hey, I'm sorry, but you're not a viable candidate or a safe candidate for surrogacy. And then the parents and the surrogate comparing each other, to their next match. And so I definitely agree with you on that. We want to make sure to protect like the surrogate and the parents' hearts, because there's so much riding on that match meeting, I think we have like a 90% success rate on match meetings, but that's because both parties want to help each other. They want to do this journey. Parents want to bring home their baby, and so there's a lot of emotions riding on that.
Yeah. So the agency is going to be cheaper in the long run than an attorney if there's anything that goes wrong, because as patient as I am, when we know that this case is taken a lot longer, if something's taken a lot longer in legal, I'm not going to be that generous with my time as I would with a case that went very smoothly. And my hourly rate is going to be a lot more than the agency's hourly rate if you factor in the effect, their flat fee.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about some things for surrogates when they're considering independent journey.
Yes.
They need to be careful to not be under pressure to sign an agreement. Sometimes we have, people who are working for an employer and they're asked to be a surrogate, and they might be told that, there doesn't have to be an escrow company. If there's compensation, I think there generally should be escrow, because in all the cases that ended up becoming, going and becoming precedent, there's usually an issue with the payments. That's when people go to court, one of the reasons. Well, and if there's no escrow company, then you can't guarantee that the intended parents will have that money to pay you if you're being compensated. You need to have life insurance, right? Even if you're altruistic, I think life insurance is something, it's a small ask. It's only a few $100s for a year for, $250,000, $500,000 life insurance policy, not that much. They need to have, sometimes I think the intended parents should have a psychological consult. Then maybe the surrogate should ask for that. That's something to consider, especially if they're having a lot of issues during the legal process.
That's great. I mean, I appreciate, like, you have a different side of this. You have a different knowledge pool because of, just the fact that you see it from your side, right? We're the agency, we see it on our end. Once it goes to legal, you're seeing that side of it, but you also have an insight to the independent side. So I appreciate you being able to share with our viewers, how to protect themselves. You have some other benefits to working with you guys too, right? Let me.
Yeah. Do we need to go to my slide? Or do you have it?
I have it. Yeah, I have it.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that we started offering this month is called Seed Coach. It's part of our website, and it's actually partly owned by Seed Trust, the companies or the people behind Seed Trust. But it's basically like a financial coach, financial guidance for intended parents. And if you're an intended parent and you're doing a contract with us, you can sign up for free for that.
Yeah, let me share that slide so they can screenshot it, and then I'll pause it on there so that they're able to take a picture of it, because I think it's very valuable to all of your clients. And I think you mentioned something about it also being, potentially can help a surrogate too.
Right. So it is for our intended parents, and it will let you, besides the fact that they'll look at the contract or the benefit package and come up with like a timeline that you need to save. It can help you with grant writing. They can help you with finding discounts like men having babies. They can help you with fundraising if you want to try GoFundMe or something like that, because they have a lot of experience from the adoption world.
Perfect. And are you seeing the screen? Right?
Yes, yeah. And if you don't need it, you could always offer that for your surrogate. Like they do offer some financial guidance for surrogates. So if surrogates have a particular thing that they want to save for, and they could offer some planning for that. And that can make you more attractive as an intended parent if you're looking for a match.
I would love that. Yeah, no, definitely. A couple things that I would love to touch on before we head out is, talking about the pros of agency versus independent and the pros of independent versus agency. And these are based on our surveys that we completed with a few hundred surrogates this previous year. So what we found is that there's a quicker match time of 4.7 months versus 6.9 months for intended parents with matching when you go through an agency. Same thing for the surrogate, a quicker match period because parents are also screened. On the same aspect, we find that there's a higher transfer success rate. That's huge. So first time transfers with agencies is at a 69% versus the 45%. And that may be what we were talking about previously about how sometimes when you're going independent as a surrogate candidate, we may have not been approved at certain clinics, and parents are able to talk with their clinics more for someone who may not be the ideal candidate. Less post-pregnancy issues with mental health. So 50% less occurrences of issues and a third, cases of mental health issues compared to an independent journey. And I think that comes from the support of an agency, being able to support the surrogate, the intended parents. There's the community of the surrogates who are all part of that agency that help, along with that surrogate support. And then the satisfaction. So we find, especially with legal, they find that surrogates who go with an agency are 67% happy with the experience compared to the 25% with an independent journey. So I think having the backing of the attorneys and the agency to support them with that communication. On the independent side, though, there's a higher base comp. And like you had spoke about, 45K versus 57. And that's probably because as surrogates, they may be asking for a little bit more while the parents are saving the money on the agency fee. Plus, there's more work for a surrogate to do when it's independent. And then on the pros for independent would be lower overall cost of the journey for the IP, so no agency fee, and less benefits offered to the surrogate. A lot of agencies have different milestones and things like that that are included in their compensations. So do you have anything you'd like to share about?
Yeah, well, one thing to note though is the base compensation, although it is higher for independent, we do notice that the other kinds of benefits, like the embryo transfer fees, the maternity clothing, the lost wages, and sometimes there'll be like a allowance for housekeeping and childcare if you're on bed rest. Those types of things are going to be lower in the independent cases. Sometimes they may not be offered at all, because the package is not going to be as sophisticated. They're not going to. It's going to be more in the base comp.
I definitely agree with you on that. And these are just the surveys. So what we just kind of covered, showing, how long did it take from the time you decided to become a surrogate until you're matched with a family. There's a lot more research that happens when you're on your own and don't have that backing of the agency to educate or to speak with several agencies. Same thing with how many attempts were required for a successful, pregnancy. I find a lot of agencies request, or, at least for SurrogateFirst, we do request an embryo report. We want to be able to educate surrogates on the quality of the embryos, if they're PG tested, if they're not, and the science behind that. So I think that does definitely help also with, the different type of surrogates. We talked about how satisfaction, how satisfied they were with their most recent surrogate experience. So if you are interested, you can always pause these to kind of go over these numbers. Same thing with how satisfied were they with the legal aspect. You can see how much, what the percentage was when they were with an agency versus independent or independent.
I would observe that it's likely that a lot of surrogates were paired with attorneys who are not experienced in art law. And they might be like, or maybe no attorney at all. I mean, sometimes we do hear about cases where it's, the surrogate's pregnant and there was no legal contract.
I had a case with a friend who was an experienced surrogate. She went through the process 3 times, then went to help her friend. The friend talked her into using an attorney, and the attorney said, "Oh, I can represent both of you." Drafted a contract. She was pregnant with twins, got to the pre-birth order, and the court denied the pre-birth order because they did not believe it to be an acceptable contract. They had to go back, hire 2 attorneys, have it properly drafted, bring it back to the courts. And that's a lot of stress when you're carrying 2 babies or expecting 2 babies to be born. So I definitely have seen that personally in my friendship circle. I apologize. I'm dealing with some allergies, and maybe I just talk too much. And so also the same thing after recovery struggles, a mental health side of it.
And you'll probably get more mental health benefits with an agency.
Yeah. And I think just being part of a community and being accepting, because I know for me personally, as a surrogate, I was working ministry when I first did my first surrogacy. And a lot of the people at church and in the ministry didn't understand that I wasn't sad about the baby. I was sad about the journey ending and being a surrogate and that label changing to my other labels that I put on myself. And when you're with an agency, you have that support. When you build that Surro sister community and with your coordinators, you can share that and they understand it because they've been through it. But when you're, if you're independent, I would assume like I wouldn't.
Oh. We had a glitch, but you're back.
Oh, that's fun. I clearly the system does not want me to be talking anymore. So let me share that last page with you guys. I really do enjoy, Ralph, the time that we got to spend with each other. I think you're probably one of the smartest people I know. I love your heart for
thank you.
Leading. And I've got to hang out and have dinner with you before. And I love everything that your law group represents, getting to meet with your other colleagues and getting to see how many families you help. And I've seen you bend over backwards and work late hours and not on business hours, just to help families. And so we appreciate just the heart you have. We can tell that it's not a financial thing for you or aspect, that you really do this because you care for your family. So, and I appreciate you making time for me. I mean, you are Tsong Law Group and you still made time for my webinar. So I
Well,
appreciate.
thank you, Ashley. I appreciate the being asked, having this opportunity to talk to people.
If anyone wants to get a hold of you, they can get a hold of you at ralph@tsonglaw.com. Same thing for me, Ashley Mareko, ashley@surrogatefirst.com, 424-567-3703. If you have registered for this, we will send you an updated the webinar recording. And when you get done with this, you should be able to have a survey that shows up. If you'd please take the time to fill that out. We do read them. I do read them. We want to improve. We want to make this beneficial to everyone so that you have this time with us of, 30 minutes to an hour to be able to learn more and protect yourselves in the surrogacy process. We will be doing another webinar in 2 weeks. But again, Ralph, thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to share before we head out?
Yes, I'd say if you at first you don't succeed, try again. So I can think of 3 intended parents that they weren't able to get through legal in an independent match, and then they went with an agency. And one of them is going through legal right now. And one of them, I know one of them was successful. So there's always, you can always try going the independent route, and you can always go back to agency if that doesn't work out for you.
Well, I appreciate that. And we've seen it too with an agency. Sometimes things come up and it's, success and transfers are not guaranteed, but we definitely want to be there and help support them through this process. Would you mind letting us know one last time what states you're licensed in?
Yes, I'm licensed in California, Washington, Illinois, and Arizona. Okay. And we're also licensed in New York and Oklahoma.
Wow. Okay, perfect. You're just taking over the world. That's cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ralph. I'm going to stop the recordings and let me see if there was any questions that I had. I think that's everything. If we do have questions, I will reach out to get your opinion on them and share those with them through email with all of our participants. Okay. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ashley.